Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Graph Kings podcast. You know where we are. We're in Kent's hottest nightclub, Moo Moo's. And today we're joined by a very, I would say, unique guest, someone with an incredible story, someone who has spent 22 years on death row. It's an unbelievable story. So I will let Nick Yarris introduce himself and dive into it. So first and foremost, welcome to the pod, man. Appreciate you coming down.
I really would like to first say what a wonderful treat it was in the course of a phone call, having someone experience the real energy of just like being validated. And I guess that's what I'm here to do tonight, share my story of self-validation, right? Every podcast is different, and I try very assiduously to make sure that it's not only informative, but it goes to the heart of what I want to share. So my name is Nick Yarris. I was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in the United States. I came to the United Kingdom in 2005, and I've been here for many years, back and forth. The story that leads me to this point of sitting before you now is that yes, I was convicted and sentenced to die in America, in Pennsylvania, for a rape and murder of a woman that I never met in my life. I was only a 20-year-old man with a very troubled childhood, and it really destroyed all of the things that I had dreams and hopes for. But it also was one of the greatest events of my life. So in summary of my introduction, I have a uniquely deeply moving life that I'm very much aware of has impacted others. And I'm grateful every time I get to introduce myself to an audience and say, hello.
Wow, what an introduction.
What an introduction.
Yeah, wow.
I think you're the second US guest we've had on the show, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. It's good to have you on, man.
Yeah,
It's a bit different from what we're used to, but we thought you'd be a perfect guest to align with our kind of core audience and stuff. And you must have some crazy mental resilience to go through what you went through, and that's what obviously we're trying to teach people as well. And to have someone with your story on the pod is an honor. So thank you very much for coming on, man.
It's a pleasure.
I've not had one psychiatric counseling session in my whole life. I've learned through self-determination and a lot of the life experiences that unfortunately were traumatic, how to have a true sense of myself. And this is what a lot of young men struggle with. Their life experience doesn't have to be traumatic for them to find this within themselves. They just have to go through this change of believing in themselves because they are a gift that someone had. You know, it's a strange thing. We have an appreciation factor that keeps fading from us in life. And I think a lot of young men just need to hear us. Like, I am honored to be on this podcast because I know it's dedicated and driven mostly to young men or men in particular, and you're trying to wonder like what it is that we're doing. We're trying to show you that despite all the things that you can go through, there's a real quality in finding yourself and sharing that with your family and showing your growth and development in a positive way, because that's what you were made for. That's what guys are, man. We're the ones that show up after the battle's over and try and fix things, or we go through the highs and lows, but we're always there for our others, you know? That's the point of coming here, I really believe, and I'm glad to be on this podcast for that reason.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, that's
really
amazing.
Appreciate that.
This is exactly why I reached out to you, because I did say to Nick, we had like a short conversation on the phone, and I said, look, the boys don't even know I've reached out to you, but when I speak to them, I know straight away they're gonna say, yes, get this guy on, because your story itself is it's unbelievable. I don't think there's a lot of people that can go through what you have and come out of it with a positive mindset and do what you are doing.
I know, it was so cool that in the span of 15 minutes and 33 seconds on the phone, I looked at the time afterwards. You can change someone's life, man.
Yeah, wow.
Oh, you got to know the backdrop to what I meant when I said the initial introduction. I had a phone conversation with this man. I was sitting in my car. I'm in a little high-low RV on my way. I pull over because he calls me finally. In the course of 15 minutes, Ozan felt the energy rushing up his back, up around his skull, lighting up his head.
Facts.
Because he was hearing the truth that he's been living and really driving himself by was being reflected to him by someone he had never met, but they were singing the same tune and his body was going crazy. And I explained it to him. See, when you live a truth, you're still true to who you are, your nature of who you are. And as a man, when you meet a fellow representation of that energy, it just lights you up. It's like that bro feeling because that soldier is exactly like you.
I agree, man.
I love that. And I hung up the phone knowing that I would be here. You know, I came here 2 hours before the podcast.
Yeah, you did.
I let you know.
I told the boys.
I always did this. Wherever I go to speak, it is so important to absorb the energy of who I'm speaking to. Knowing that you grew up here, that was the first thing I wanted to know. I also, I love the idea that I get to have this feeling. I'm paying homage to you by being here, not in a blur, but like I told you, I want to really appreciate each effort because I don't know how much longer I'll have clarity of mind.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't know this. I endured so many beatings on death row in prison that I have what's described as CTE, brain injury. Now, I don't have bandages and I don't have bruises that you can see, but I promise you it's a full-on thing where I have a floating disc in my eye and I have at times difficulty struggling against the feeling and want to be utterly black and bleak. So I have a really good thing that I've been working on. It's called neuroplasticity healing. And basically, if you can understand a gymnasium concept, you know, guys, you can go in the gym and work out, right? And it changes your body physiologically. I can teach you how to use your brain to erase all PTSD. So basically, you go into a mental gym and you start practicing meticulous, polite behavior with others. Why? Your brain has a built-in feature that allows you to rewrite that circular thought of negativity that's been bugging you because you're so fixated on the reward that your brain gets from the smiling, returning faces of your kindness. Now, if you think this is mad, I got out of prison and my mother made me make her a promise that I would be a polite person. About 15 years after practicing that utter politeness to others, I met a man named Robin Sharma, the foremost authority on neuroplasticity healing and teaching. He said, unequivocally, I was living every teaching methodology he had ever shared, and I had somehow exponentially taken it to an art form. What a compliment by a man who's...
Yes, people, I hope you're enjoying the pod so far, just like we are. If you guys could hit the subscribe button, you'd be doing the world of favors. Let's get back into it.
Dedicated his life to teaching people about this healing. Think about it this way. The core of charisma comes from your self-confidence, ability to be meticulously polite to someone without faltering. This is why so many charismatic actors and others have this charm about them. They're projecting exactly what I'm telling you you can develop. That's why I haven't had one psychiatric counseling session since I got released in 2004.
2004, wow. So for the listeners back home who don't have a full debrief on your story, how did you get released in 2004?
Okay.
Do you want to go back before that first?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go back. Yeah, let's go back to prior to prison, Nick.
I want to give you a good synopsis, a cogent lead up to all of this. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania was the end of the slave railroad. The underground slave railroad from the Virginias and South America ended in Philadelphia because William Penn, a Quaker and a forward-thinking founder of America, had a creed that by virtue of being in the city of Philadelphia, in your physical form, you were a free person. Just the thought that if you could make it to Philadelphia by virtue of being standing in that street, you could be a free person, the city of brotherly love. And when I was growing up, it was so beautiful. People had garden contests in their neighborhoods to facilitate this contest of who had the best neighborhood. It was really cool to get your face painted and go to Teddy Pendergrass concerts and all these things. It was a great time to be a kid. But then America lost so much in 1968 with the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. in Tennessee. Every major city in America started having race riots. I remember this incident where Roderick Jones was my best friend in school, and we raced all the time. Who could be the fastest? That's all we did. My father sat me down on a sofa with my siblings and explained to me I couldn't be friends with Roderick no more because of his skin color. And I said, why? Because he was faster than me. And he goes, no. Roderick's angry, and everyone who's black is angry because the man they love was killed, and I don't get this. And I still distinctly remember he just said, for your own safety, don't be around anyone that's not white. And I couldn't get it through my head. So I lived in this realm that my world was being upside down by the social torment of the country around me. And then in an incident just after, I get my head beaten in by a man who found me walking with my dog in the woods near my home, and he raped me. And he left me with all this shame and degradation in my brain. And no one would believe me because I told the initial lie that he forced me to say, that I had fallen off a wall and a shopping cart fell on top of my head. So, like young men the world over, when we're shamed deeply like that, I turned to anger and drugs and alcohol, and I did everything I could to be just as vile as the man that attacked me. I remember I was so devastated by this feeling, I literally would sneak out of my neighborhood to go do nice deeds for women at the shopping centers out in the suburbs so that they could thank me and make me feel good inside. Because in my neighborhood, I was Nicky Yarris and everybody was afraid of me, and I was a thief and a junkie.
Wow.
How old was you at this time, Nick?
It's 15. So by the time I'm 19 years old, I've confronted my attacker in the woods. He was coming down from railroad tracks, and as he stood before me, coming up close to me, he had a quart bottle of beer, they call 32-ounce bottle. And all of a sudden, he became like the most milquetoast person you could imagine, blathering in front of me about the traumas that he went through as a child and how his father beat him and touched him and shit or whatever. And I'm like, you're not making any sense. You're the monster in my dreams. You're the guy who used to terrorize me when you caught me alone in the alley and you would rough me up and threaten to kill my family and my dog. Like, how can you be weak? But I'm 6'2". I weigh 200 pounds and he's only 5'9", maybe 180, 170 pounds. I don't know, but I'm 4 inches taller than him, and I just got out of the juvenile facilities that taught me to be a violent offender, man. So I wanted him to be aggressive. I wanted him to be the guy that always hurt me. And he was afraid of me, and it freaked me out. And I remember I took the beer out of his hand, I threw it on the ground, I called him names, and I ran. I left him standing there. I couldn't even hurt the man that hurt me because in that moment I realized I was him. I was disgusting. I had no manner of speech, no patience for anyone. I stole from my own family, man.
Wow.
What a moment. So I run off. I go to Florida and I blow out a hotel room, and they put me in the South Florida State Mental Institution for 8 months, and I get diagnosed with aphasia, a brain disorder brought on by head trauma. And the doctors explained to me that as long as I was sober and not doing methamphetamine, I had a good chance of healing. So I go back to Philadelphia. I'm 19 years old. For the first time in my life, I'm sober. I get a job in Philadelphia. I start dating this girl. Everything's going good. And then she breaks up with me. I use it as a petty excuse like we do, guys. My girl broke up with me. I'm going to go get high. I'm 19. I just turned 20, right? I go out and steal a car with my boy Eddie Peterson. We get chased by the cops, and the police catch me and beat my face in and stuck all kind of stitches in my mouth. I didn't learn my lesson. I went back to my parents' house and I started getting high again. 3 weeks later, I got tired of being cooped up in the house with my mouth all bashed in, and I stole another car in Chester County, Pennsylvania, and I get pulled over this time, but I'm so terrified, and I have this aphasia, I don't move. When the officer pulls up next to me, I don't even know the radio's blasting. I don't know anything. I'm stricken with fear from the beating I just got from the Philadelphia police when this guy rips the door open, and just like I hear the music all of a sudden, and he ripped me out. He puts his forearm on my throat and started choking me, and I start resisting. And due to this incident, his weapon was discharged. That was the end of my life at the age of 20, because the officer took time to compose himself and make up a cockamamie story that I had took his weapon, that I had run back and punched him in his face and broke his eyeglasses and took his gun off him. And he heroically overpowered me and took the gun from me. I had no say in the matter. I was a 20-year-old junkie sitting in the back of a police cruiser, and I had just been arrested 3 weeks before that for the same crime of stealing a car. But there's no way anybody's going to believe you when you're a kid. And the police knew this, man. So I did the stupid thing of all. And this is one of the greatest mistakes of my life that I still live with. I went to prison. I was held in maximum security housing with no drug treatments. And after I went through drug withdrawal, I woke up to a cell with a newspaper in it. On page 3 of the December 15th, 1981 Delaware County Daily Times newspaper was a story about the abduction and mystery murder of Linda Mae Craig, a 33-year-old mother of 3 who lived in the area, who worked across the state line in Delaware, just getting gifts for her children over Christmas. The police were baffled by her murder, and the strangest thought came into my mind, became a mantra. What if? What if I knew something about a crime like this? I bet you I could tell the cops a lie and I could get out of here just like they're lying on me. That's the mindset of a 20-year-old. And this is what led to my downfall. I literally talked my way into charges by convincing the police that I knew something about this crime and blaming a man in my neighborhood who had previously robbed me and rode me around in a rug in his back of his pickup truck. The police found out I was lying. They came back to me and they said very strenuously, "We know that you came forward because you killed Mrs. Craig. We know that you had a troubled childhood. You broke up with your girlfriend. And we know that you killed this woman and you were doing this as a cry for help." And I said, "No, man, I told you I didn't do the original crime. I didn't take this officer's gun. I didn't hurt him." And sure enough, the police decided this was an easy case to close because they had no idea. And there's no DNA back in the 80s or any of these things. They knew that the killer had B positive blood. They took a swab of my blood, and I am a B positive secretor of this blood antigen. And for them, that was it. After they found out that my blood matched the killer, they formulated a plan that they were going to make this case fit. They got witnesses to change their story about the original assailant that they saw in the area of the attack being 5'5", 5'7", long, dark, black, greasy hair. I promise you, as bald as I am, I was once just as blonde, and I had long locks at the time.
So did I once as well.
Yeah, man, I was a shaggy dog at one
I saw
time.
the pics, man.
So
I saw.
it was really disheartening that they were picking on me mentally, and I didn't have the fortitude to stand up for myself. The most sinister thing ever done to me during the course of that early part was Detective Randy Martin took me back to prison and did this performance in front of the Pagans motorcycle gang in which he hugged me and said that they were going to go kick some doors in now. And that was setting me up to be a snitch. And then the next day I wake up and the attacks start. Guy tries to put my eye out with a sharpened boom. They're throwing urine and feces at me. They got cleanser in cups, boiling water, trying to blind me. I'll never forget, and I hate doing this because it's the hardest thing I ever tell. About the 6th day of the attacks, all day long, because anytime they opened my door, I was hurting people. I was getting in that shower. I was getting this filth off me, and whoever's on the tier, I was getting them. So I was a bloody mess, but a guy named Angel, the head of the Pagans, who was the president, he called for silence one night, and he said, "We're not going to attack you tomorrow, Nick. No one's going to attack you when you come out of your cell. You're free to come out again." I was like, "Yeah, right. You motherfuckers going to give me a break." He said, "No, because if you don't kill yourself, we're just going to send someone to your parents' house and kill them." I was like, man, that's some dirty shit. So the story goes, and I always only told this part, that after 6 days of being tortured, I hung myself in my prison cell, only to have a guard miss a inmate with their medication and come back by accident at 10 o'clock and catch me hanging from the radiator, only to cut me down and tell me that he was not letting me cheat the state of Pennsylvania out of my punishment. So it was pretty bleak. And I went through some terrible experiences where my mother tried to come and see me, and she was like, "Nikki, I don't understand this. I don't know what you're doing. What are you up to? But whatever you got to go through, don't you dare hurt yourself. I dreamed about you being born. Don't take that from me."
That's deep, man.
Fucking hell.
That's so deep.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know which point to go back to, but I'm thinking as a 20-year-old male at that time, when I'm guessing you had to go to trial, you had to stand there, and when they say, and then bang that hammer and say, "Look, this is it, you're going to prison for the rest of your life, for death row," like, what's going through your mind at that moment?
The courthouse got struck by lightning. You could look it up. In June of 1982, my apologies, I was on trial for the rape and murder of Linda Mae Craig, having already been found not guilty of all my original charges by a jury after only 15 minutes of deliberation, because the police officer lied. It's just cut right through that. So they saw through his lie, and I got exonerated from that. And the prosecutor who lost that took it personally, took over the homicide trial. And a month after I was acquitted, I was on trial for murder. And the courthouse got struck by lightning in this eerie moment. Arthur Craig, the victim's husband, was on the stand testifying, and they showed him a photograph of his wife. And it was done with those old projection systems, so there was the clicking and the whirling of the material.
Yes, guys, just another gentle reminder that now we, the Graph Kings, are sponsored by IPAM. We want to give you more insight into their website and what they do. Ignite take pride in every transaction they do. They treat your commercial and residential property as it's their own. IPAM see it as a privilege to make sure that the buildings they manage thrive for their owners and first and foremost, but also for their occupiers. IPAM specialise in residential and property lettings. Our bespoke services including the market valuation, vetting potential tenants, conducting viewings, running checks and making sure that the right tenant is suitable for your property. So guys, make sure you check out their socials. Again, thank you IPAM for sponsoring us. Now let's get back to the show.
Real? I'll never forget this. They showed the photograph of the victim being found in the parking lot. And it was two children.
That's insane.
Their footprints were black where they initially were standing in blood, but they came up through the snow and then they got lighter as they ran away in arcing form, and it looked like an angel's wing around this dead woman. They showed that to the jury, and the jury looked at me like I was a piece of dirt. And then they never looked at me again, and no one could look at me again. It was bugging me. And then later that day, boom, the courthouse itself got struck by lightning, and they jumped up with their guns out like I was going to escape or something, and they hustled me up into this big cell above the courthouse, and I was up in this big empty cell, and I was watching the courthouse below, and because the power was knocked out, everything was still. It was lightly raining, but you couldn't hear any noises on the street or anything. It was so pristine. And I looked down and I saw the faces of people that babysat me as a child, who I grew up around, and they were all sneering at me and saying all these horrible things to me. And I was like, fuck. No one's ever going to look at me, man. So I just heard this strange thing in my head, like, it wasn't vocal. It was like an energy. And I just knew that I had to look people in the eye. When you don't do something wrong, don't you dare lower your eyes. I mean it. If someone's falsely accusing you of something, look them in the eye, because it's the only strength that you have. And as a 20-year-old boy facing the death penalty in the next few minutes, that's all I had. And you know, it was remarkable. When people are doing you wrong, they can't look you in the eyes because the eyes of their soul are open. I honestly believe that. So Robert F. Kelly sentences me to death, and he can't look me in the eye. And he asked me, was I finished speaking at one point? And I said, no, sir, you can go to hell. And I meant it. Like, if he had the courage to go and have that job where he had to put me as a 20-year-old to death by telling me how they were going to pump 2,300 volts of electricity through my body and cook my brain with a sponge on top, you got to look me in the eye, mister. And that's when I had courage. Like, that was my first moment of courage. I really believe that, because it was so hard to hear my sister cry out when they read the verdict of and being guilty of in prison and murder of a woman. They tortured me. They did some really sick things to me. Then I learned something. You can't go across your nature. I started helping other men, writing letters to their moms, their sisters, their wives, girlfriend, beautiful letters. It took me many years to become an educated person, but once I did, I learned the value of sticking to my nature, because at one point I got 2 guys off of death row, and I had so many men love me that if anybody put their hands on me, they were going to have to face a lot of pain. Fascinating that I used kindness on death row to barter my way out of torture. I had officers actually protect me after a riot because they were so enamored with why I was a nice person despite everything that they were doing to me. And I'm going to give you an example. My first 2 years on death row were so hard. I was beaten and then dragged into my cell where a nurse ignored my bloody face to read off the correct formula for seeing a nurse or a doctor in that prison. I was instructed that if I spoke in my cell, 4 men would rush in with heavy armor and hold me down after beating me, so that that same nurse could come into my cell with a needle full of Thorazine, a medical drug that's used for psychiatric patients, and basically put me in a mental straitjacket for a week with that drug. That's just for speaking in my cell. See, there was no death row. I had to be thrown in with the punishment units because I was the second youngest person sentenced in Pennsylvania's history to death. And they didn't have a death row for me, so they just threw me in with the monsters. That's where I began.
That's crazy.
Damn.
I'm lost for words. First time I think I've been on this pod and actually not know what to say.
I think any story
Any story ever in my whole life.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've never been able to not.
I don't know how you do it, mate.
That, yeah.
I don't know how you endured that and still here to tell the tale. It's absolutely crazy. I think I have tough days, and I'm hearing about what you're telling me.
One important question I really want to ask you, Nick. I'm sure there's more. Obviously, I want to hear more of the story, but just as this goes, I was going to wait till the end to ask you. But are you a man of God?
I made the endeavor of reading all of the world's religions because I wanted to have enough respect for someone else to understand their beliefs. And then I wanted to seek the answer myself of what I was looking for. At the conclusion of a 3-year journey of reading all of the world's major religions, I was handed a newspaper about DNA testing. This is crazy. Just like the courthouse gets struck by lightning, a guy who's convicted of like 30 rapes named Dennis Sheffield gives me a newspaper that's being thrown out, and on the front page of the section of the technology was how Sir Alec Jeffreys of Leicestershire used the bloods of all of the men in the surrounding area to find that Colin Pitchfork murdered a female in Leicestershire in 1988. 87.
What year
No,
is this
85 it was. I'm sorry.
What year are you in?
I was there. I went in 82, long before DNA. I wrote to the author, Joseph Wambaugh, who mentioned it in his book as well. Joseph Wambaugh got in touch with Leicester University, and for 12 of the next years of my life, I was pen pals with Sir Alec Jeffreys, who taught me about DNA science. I knew I had unequivocally the ability to prove my innocence. I just had to go through the onslaught of all the evidence being deliberately thrown away as they tried to murder me over the next 15 years. I went through 2 riots. I got beaten and stabbed multiple times. And the guards used to enjoy, for their own amusement mostly, gladiator school, where I was made to fight other men over and over and over. And if they were smaller than me, smash them to bits, because if you don't fight, you're getting beat down. On to the fact that I went through this extraordinary thing of escaping from death row in 1985, being on the FBI's most wanted list, and then turning myself back in. The beating that I received for that left me with a brain injury, broken teeth, a detached retina, and I realized when I went for the dental treatments for the broken teeth, the dentist didn't clean the return on the suction device that's stuck into the corner of your mouth, and infected me along with others with hepatitis C. And I had to go through the most hideous form of interferon drug treatment in 2002 that left me blinded in my own cell. After 20 years of madness and suffering, and having a relationship to a woman burned to bits because while they were destroying the evidence, she left. I decided to do this remarkable thing. I wrote a letter to the court seeking to dismiss my attorney so that I could ask to be executed. I watched another man below me named Dale Carter be tortured by the state as he died of impacted bowel syndrome that I was having in my body. And the glee and the schadenfreude that the staff displayed upon torturing him was all going to be aimed at me. And I said no. I had found God in my answers of spirituality searching. I got my answer when I finished reading all of the world's religions and I was handed DNA. I decided I wasn't going to be afraid of my death and that I was going to treat it like an elegant experience by commandeering their little plan and asking to be executed. And that's how I got the final DNA testing to be granted to me, despite what they really believed about me.
When
Damn.
is it true that I read when you are on death row, you can actually ask to be executed and they have to honor that.
It's a dead man's rule. The law states you, as an individual sentenced to death, have the right to be executed. It's a right. You know, they used to torture me every month and ask me what to do with my body. Yeah. See, they used to try and break me. They would ask me each month at a program review committee meeting to admit my guilt, dispense with my appeals, and face my executioner because I owed the state for what I had done to that woman. And if that didn't work, they would always try and make me fill out a DC 136A form, which was a disposal of my body form and what to do with my body. And I thought, man, if you succeed in killing me, do what you want with it because you win. And I wouldn't do it for the longest time.
What I want to know is once your innocence was proved, how did they compensate you for all the years that you had to sacrifice of your life?
Oh, no. When I first got out, I was told I only had 3 years to live before I had to have a liver transplant. All of the politicians didn't want to know me because the prosecutor said, despite the DNA testing, I somehow must have been involved. Despite DNA of 2 separate men, I somehow must have been involved. And I got no help from anyone. Initially, I was sitting in my parents' house in Philadelphia, and I made a decision. This was such a big event in my life, I wasn't going to let it go for naught. I was going to use this amazing autodidactic effort of educating myself from a man who barely understood multiple syllable words to a fact that within 10 months of my release, I was here in England addressing a combined session of the lower House of Commons. I was on this morning with Philip Schofield, and I was presenting a platform of economic embargo against Pennsylvania for what they did to me and my 2 friends that I believed were innocent, whom I've now gotten free. And I took myself so seriously that I went from being afraid to be out around human beings, initially wondering how they would treat me, to commanding the room in Parliament and in France and in Sweden. And check this out. 10 months after my release, I was in Rome in front of 20,000 people at the Colosseum, taking myself so seriously, I did one of the finest performances of my life on stage at the Colosseum. I knew I wasn't this horrible loser that everyone painted me as. I just projected that to everyone because I didn't love myself. And it's true. Like, my mother asked me only one thing when I got out. Please, Nikki, do me a favor. Be a nice man. This family's been so hurt by what they did to your father, me, your brothers. Please do me a favor and say, yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Thank you, sir. And no, sir. Want to know why, Nick? Because you represent the respect that I hold. I was like, wow. I don't even have a right to be angry when my mom put me in duty like that. So I made an effort upon release that I wasn't going to waste my time being bitter. I had dreams of all of the which that you have, right? And all along I've been dealing with this creepy, crawly bastard of a brain disorder that's been bugging me and bugging me. It pleads with me to get angry. So in the morning, I have a reminder on my phone that goes, Dear Nick, you suffer from a brain injury. Remember, you're a kind person. Don't be angry today. And I read it to myself every day. I'm going to be an example of someone who is going to outlive expectations of losing my marbles over the next 5 years from this disease that's supposedly incurable, by using neuroplasticity, what my mother gave me as a gift when I got out, to keep going. Look at the manner and pattern of my speech. Can you imagine that there was one time in my life that I truly couldn't string together a really good cogent paragraph of speaking? That I would be aimless in my direction, I couldn't hold thoughts together, and I damn sure couldn't perform a 2.5-minute monologue before they executed me. So I came up with this idea. I was going to learn how to speak beautifully so that when they executed me for something I didn't do, I didn't embarrass myself. That's all I ever did.
Damn. I can't get my head around that you've not been compensated. It blows my mind that they can rob you of all them years of your life.
Yeah, but that's a slippery slope. If you look for a payment in life for anything you go through, what are you doing? I'm going to give you an example of my strength. I lost everything. There's a man in the room over here who knows this. I lived in the woods for the last 4 years. I am homeless as I sit before you, boys. I have basically enough fuel and a little bit for food money and stuff to get myself to the next destination. I don't want anybody to believe that you have to be a success to be okay. That's some bullshit. You know how many people are rich or miserable? But I know the difference between being poverty-stricken and just without. I'm not poverty-stricken. I have talent and ability. I'll always make it back. I'm just going through change. I came back to England in April to reunite with my wife. Unfortunately, that fell apart. It happens, right? So I have to start over. And that's what it's fascinating. This will be like the last time I speak in England for a long time. I'm going to leave in 2 days to go start my life over. Why? I have to believe, just like I did when I first got out. This has been so big of an event, it can't be for naught. I'm sorry. Like, I've been shot, stabbed, strangled. I had my throat slit. Got run over by a car. I hung myself in prison. I lived through a prison riot. I escaped from death row without getting my brains blown out. But I've gone through so many illnesses, injuries, and I'm still on my path of still doing good. I can't explain it. I know this is crazy, but it feels like I'm actually on this just amazing, incredible, beautiful journey. And at times I catch myself smiling in glee just to catch the nighttime sky. I'm so happy to be alive. I swear to God, I shouldn't be here.
I feel like if resilient was a person, it would be you.
Hell, yeah.
Honestly,
Nick, I want to try and deep delve into what it was. I don't know how to word this properly, but what it was that kept you going and keeps you going now. Like, what is that? But what is it you believe that your mission is? Or do you believe that God has put you on a mission? If you believe, of course.
I believe in good. Now, I'm not talking about good manners. Mm-hmm. I believe and I shape my life around good. I realized something. I have an energy, and this gift of my energy, I don't know exactly where I'm going with it, but I don't want to cause it any more damage and mess it up. I'm so tired of suffering. I've been through so many highs. I had my baby girl die in my arms, 6 months old, from Sid's death by putting her down for a crib nap. My parents are both dead. I don't have any family left. I can't believe I've gone through all this suffering for no reason. That's not fair. So maybe I have this beautiful notion And I like this about myself. I'm going to give it purpose and meaning by being good. I'm going to be the good in someone else's life and offer them good. Make them strong. Make them happy. I don't care what's taken from me. Look what I can still give. I promise you, I love the fact I still have a purpose. Isn't that relevant? Isn't that what we all want? Have a purpose.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man.
I feel like you're doing that through all of these movements that you've been doing after you've come out as well, because I know you've been on a few different platforms, and I think a lot of people viewing and watching this will be starstruck and just it's difficult to listen to, but at the same time, it's like the misery you've been through. A lot of people will look at that and go, "Wow, like my life. What have I been complaining about?"
That's why we share.
What have we been
Take
complaining
strength
about?
from it.
I'm okay with that. I got a message this morning from a kid who's 17 years old who's been struggling with addiction. The first thing I taught him about is kindness. He said, "No one's ever taught me that." It's like, dude, that's the core of your development. And within a few messages, the kid's all right. You know, he's trying. Let's put it in perspective, all right? You only can reach people like this if you have nothing. I figured it out, boys. I swear to God. If I was a huge, rich, smashing success, what a waste it would have all been, because nobody would have been able to share this deeply personal experience that I'm going through. I can only get someone not to kill themselves because I'm struggling. If they know I'm homeless right now, they know I don't have anything, and I'm still able to do this, you will hang on for me, won't you? Like, you will send me the message and tell me you heard me. And you will tell me how you help someone else because you're like me. I figured it out, boys. I swear to God. The reason before now I couldn't have all of my dreams smash and just blow up, I had to save and get in touch with people that really needed me. I'm okay with that. I did the same thing on death row. I know they killed people. I know that they were horrible on the outside. I know in their drugged out minds they did some brutal shit. But I was living next to men, and I treated them like men. And I stayed true to my nature by treating them with respect. Do you get that about yourself? You're in the same situation now. Believe me, every one of you watching this video is living under a death sentence. There's no appeal process. There's no appeal involved. And you won't even know you're dying unless you've been diagnosed with a terminal illness. And yet you go on as if you're not living with the sword of Damocles over your head, and you're all about to die at some point. I'll never live that way. That's the blessing I had from being told, I'm going to strap you down and kill you. I took every day since that as a precious gift, because I get it. I'm living with my death sentence, but I don't have to live like I'm on the gallows. And I dare not waste it with anger.
Wow, fucking hell.
That's a really good way of looking at it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Jeez.
Let's put stuff in perspective, like, I had a bit of a shitty day.
And say, hopefully you're enjoying it so far, first and foremost. And secondly, if you guys can, please subscribe to our channel. It would mean the world to us. So let's get back to the show. Thank you.
Before I come to the pod today, and I'm now listening to you, and I've not had a shitty day. It's just it all means nothing.
All right, but at the same time, I always want this. Please don't dismiss the stones in your shoe. They hurt you, man. What you have to learn is that there's either a lesson there, or you override it with your mental structure of going out, and instead of being focused on that, being nice. There's a lovely bartender across from us, and in the course of sitting down with my lovely friend David Sington, who came here, the director of Fear of 13, for those of you who don't know it, we made the woman feel exceptionally good by being polite to her. That really matters to her, man. More importantly, I couldn't have time to think about my shit day if I'm out there doing that. So
Wow.
that's the key to it. I've been in the gym so long, I can light up the room with charm and charisma, or I can get someone like Ozan to listen to me so deeply on a fucking phone that he gets it. That's what the power of charisma comes from. Your own neuroplasticity healing. You don't need therapy if you're out there every day being polite to someone, because within months, all you'll be seeking is that next polite interaction. And don't be thinking, oh, people are going to play me for a mug because I'm being nice. Guess what? The suavest, most coolest gangsters I ever met in my life knew how to play that role. You don't have to be aggressive and macho if you got it. If you got swagger, be smooth, man. Because if you think about it, you're erasing all the toxins that have driven you to the point to feel that need of aggression. I can handle myself. I promise you I'm a dangerous individual. I pray never to hurt anyone. Get it? A man with confidence doesn't want conflict. He wants growth, and he wants people to love him. You ain't going to get it with a hard attitude. And if you think I'm a mug, I'll step into any alley with you and show you. Don't need to, because I'll befriend you before that and we'll hang out and be cool. That's the way I look at it.
Wow, what a statement.
It's almost cool nowadays to be the complete opposite to what you're saying. It's crazy, like that, because
That it's not true, though.
Yeah.
But look, we
That's
keep...
what the young guys think.
Yeah, we keep only getting so much information about that. So that's why this podcast counts. The more you expose young people to being able to not need to project an aggressive form, to project that they're, I hate to say this, that you're down, like you have to be, or that you have to push people back, because if you let someone in, then they're going to break your trust. Guess what? They stole your kindness. You've been played. You have no more personality development because you're not opening up to this beautiful thing that's you. Look, it comes down to this. What do you want? I used to stand in front of my prison cell for 8,057 days, and I would ask myself, if that door opened, Nikki, what do you want? And I realized it. If what you want isn't taking from someone else, if what you want is meaningful and good, you deserve it. Don't let nobody take that from you, man. You should have everything that everyone else has without anybody making you feel cheap and small about that. But make sure what you want isn't to someone else's degradation, that you hurt them for it, man. Don't be that guy, because you're letting everyone down, man. And I do apologize. I've made several references to only the guys listening. I know there's a lot of females that really respond to this, because you watch this to learn about men. Please know, in humbleness, I understand women are so much stronger than men. You can do fantastical things that we can't do, but you need us to be stronger than you. And how you play that game of chess is all down to how it plays for you in a relationship. You can always get me to jump up and do you a solid or a favor or whatever you want to call it by saying the following, oh, Nikki, can you do me a favor? And I would jump right at it. But if you come at me and tell me what you need done, it's going to be a resistance factor that you've already laid in place. So think about your words, because you can get the same man to paint your house as the one that'll break it down.
Wow.
Based on your words.
I want to touch on what you said about what you've come into recently. You're now homeless, you said. I didn't actually know that before the pod. When you showed me your pictures of your RV or whatever it may be that you showed me on your phone, I didn't actually know that you was homeless. I didn't know you was living out of that. So that come to a shock to me. How did that happen? Like, I don't understand. Like,
I lost everything from COVID. My wife and I separated. She went through some personal issues and she had to fly back to the United Kingdom with her 2 children. I stayed in Oregon and was living in the woods with my dogs. I had a very traumatic experience where one of my dogs died in my arms, triggering the PTSD from my daughters dying in my arms, and it was really hard on me.
damn.
I decided I had to leave America because the NHS was offering free health care for my CTE brain injury related issues that I need help with. So I believed that my wife was doing a lot better and that we could come and reunite. And I gave away my RV that I was living in to a family that had an autistic child, and his name's Nick. How cool is that? And then when I got here to England, a guy named Nick up in Peterborough gave me a car on tick and let me start off.
Yes, guys, so as you know, we have recently partnered up with IPAM. They are specialised chartered surveyors based in the very heart of London and in Kent. So guys, you're probably thinking, who are IPAM? IPAM are specialists when it comes to letting, leasing and strategic investments. Guys, IPAM pride themselves on not only working on behalf of the occupier, but also on behalf of the owner. What chartered surveyor do you know that offers a 24/7 support system? IPAM are those chartered surveyors. If you're looking to make a strategic investment in property or just simply looking to find out some information about the property world, hit IPAM up on their website, drop them a DM on Instagram, and all of their socials will be below this video. So a massive love to IPAM for sponsoring the Graph Kings. Now let's get back to the pod.
So I've been homeless in England since March
this year.
of this year. Yeah, I've been living out of a car, and then I got enough money to buy a small 1992 Citroen Hilo RV. So it has, a sink, a bed, and a stove in it. So I bought the vehicle hoping that my good friend Alex, who has bone cancer, was going to come over and we were going to take his fulfillment dream of going to Scotland, because I met him 3 years ago and I've been keeping him going ever since with loving this guy. But he's got a rare form of cancer that's killed everybody within 6 months of diagnosis. And he's managed to hold on for 10 years despite multiple surgeries and everything. So my dream now is in the next couple of days, I'm leaving the United Kingdom and I'm going to go start over and I'm going to see how I do.
Where? Here. Well, obviously you said you're leaving the UK, so whereabouts are you going to start over?
I'm thinking of going to Ireland, man. I left my daughter's ashes there when I visited the Trinity's College. And my grandmother was Irish. She came from Cork. My grandfather was English, Silas Martin. I don't know where he came from. But I've been in every other part of the UK, and I want to go over. My dream is to have a nighttime radio program and talk to people and get them not to kill themselves.
Yeah, wow.
I want people to spend not a podcast episode of listening to others speak. I would like to talk to you if you're thinking about it. I've been there. I hung myself in a prison cell. I get it. There's a lot of shame and humiliation if you want to know what's on the other side if you survive it. Don't do it because it's really shameful. So I dream of having a nighttime radio program called Talk to Me. And I want to get to the people and just make them laugh and shake it off and come back to me. I've had literally over the last 20 years, about 5,000 to 7,000 people not kill themselves because of my efforts to beg them not to do it. So
Fucking hell.
I've always thought wanting to kill yourself is like having that thought process where you have to be in your mind is
Dark.
crazy. It's dark as it is, but then having the courage to actually do it, to attempt it, is a complete and utter different level.
Well, I'm going to give you an example. Robin Williams was one of the most lovable human beings in the world. Could you ever imagine him taking a rope and hanging another human being?
Never.
He would never hurt another human being in the manner that he hurt himself. That shows there's a snapping fissure that takes place at some point where the pain and anger makes you so convinced that you have to do this thing. You can't not do it. I live with a brain disease that makes me want to kill myself. You hear me? I live right now with a disease that makes me want to get angry at loss, and it makes me want to kill myself. I can't help it. I know I have a brain injury. It's not my fault. If I can hang on and deal with this thing actively hurting me, I know you get that feeling and you can do this. Get it? Whoever you are, listen to this. I know that feeling and you're so convinced it's real. But then you're spitting in the face of every ancestor that fought through the plague or the war or disease to give you this gift. All of the struggles that they have, you just kick them in the face like you ain't shit? Like all your suffering didn't mean anything? Because look, I own the top of the pyramid. That's not cool, man. Because somewhere down the line, someone put you as a dream. Don't give that dream up, man, because I know it doesn't make sense, but you could be the determining factor in someone else's life endlessly, man. Thank God I didn't kill myself, because there's so many people that would have never met me through the film that I made with David and I. I was telling him again tonight when I was sitting before this podcast, how grateful I am that I got this opportunity to touch people's lives, man. You don't get that gift often, do you? So don't underestimate that, please.
I know, obviously, Nick, you've been through unexplainable situations and circumstances, and I know this might sound crazy, but I kind of believe that you was almost meant to go through them things to be the person that you are now and the mission that you're on.
I believe that too. Honestly, 4 days ago, I was driving down the street and a little 3-year-old boy broke through the gate, was going to run out into traffic. And only because I was right there at that moment, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be in my life. How is that possible? I should have been dead so many times. And when I experience this thing again, it gives me so much invigorating hope. You know that moment you turn the corner and that person you've been thinking about is right there?
Yeah.
You pick up the phone, you're going to send a text, and that person calls you.
So weird.
Yeah.
You feel a pain. You can't understand that pain, and then you talk to your friend and they got backache, and you're like, damn, my shit was hurting all day. There's a connectivity. Something's going on. I don't understand it. I might sound crazy for the following. Bear with me. The Western medical philosophy in treating hepatitis is just like cancer. Nearly kill the host, and you can kill the virus. When they were poisoning me with interferon and ribavirin, I went into a dream stasis for 7 months, where my dreams were chaotically different than any time in my life. I was seeing myself as an older person with events and places I'd never seen before. And I got out of prison. I got my life back, and all of a sudden, the dreams start happening, man. And I call them glimpses. Just before they unfold, I'll remember the dream on death row that I had about the incident, so much so that I was standing in front of my parents' house in 2010, and I turned to Jessie and I said to her, there's going to be an accident with this car that's going past us. It was a learner driver who was making a left turn. Coming at us was a police patrol car just putting on their lights, just like in my dream. And as they turned on the lights, they blew up this street, and the learner driver kept making the left turn, and they T-boned them. And she turned to me, she said, how did you know that was going to happen? I said, you ain't going to believe this, but I dreamed about that on death row. So look, I don't know what any of that means, but I got some crazy shit going on in my life. I can't explain my life. I literally am apologizing to you. I'm not putting on airs. I've had some next level shit happen to me that makes me unable to explain my own life before you. I've had incidents happen that are so huge, I should have never attained them, but they were meant for me. Whether they were tragic loss, difficult ordeals, or sublimely beautiful, where the president of the European Union is on stage with the former president of Switzerland, and they both tell me in unison how beautiful I am, when I was a convicted murderer 20 years before that, and everybody thought I was a monster.
Nick, did you ever sit there and think what your life, or where you would be in life if you had never gone to prison in the
I already
first
know that
place?
answer. Both my brothers and all my childhood friends are dead. OxyContin wiped out Philadelphia. Philadelphia has 500 murders a year. I would be dead. And God did me a favor, put me on death row. I was so violent and so angry initially. The only chance I had to survive in prison was to be on death row in solitary confinement so I couldn't kill others. And they could beat me enough to make me humble. I know that sounds crazy, but I only learned how to love other human beings from torture, from physical torture. Be it them cutting my fingernails off me sideways with these metal shears,
Oh my God.
or
What?
making me beat a man that couldn't defend himself so badly I shattered his hip and I had to live with it. I get it, but I had to learn love somehow.
That's crazy. That is actually crazy to even comprehend what you just said, man.
No, it makes perfect sense. The world is going to have extraordinarily cruel people in it. Not human beings, people. And they're going to do things to hurt you. The measure of who you are is in the aftermath. Do you shine brightly because you got robbed, or you go around squabbling about it and make everybody miserable? Can't wait to tell everybody the shit that's been done to you. Or do you find somebody like I just recently did and give them a car because the person that alerted you to their life did some sinister shit by bad-mouthing me? That's what I just did. Remember the car I told your audience I got given by that guy, Nick? Well, after I paid it off, I gave it to a friend of mine who needs a car because I have the little RV. I already finished paying for it, and she doesn't have a car, and she had all these mental problems and stuff, so give her the car. Look, take control of what hits you in life. See, these guys are feeling the impact of the information about the ordeal, but what I do with my pain, every year on my birthday, I go out and give my birthday away.
Someone else.
I don't have gifts and parties and birthday cake. No, man. I'm a gift. So every year I go out and give my birthday to somebody. That's what I do.
I couldn't believe it when you told me that.
I love that.
I couldn't believe it.
Can't hurt my feelings, and you can't let me down because I'm not having a party. And I can't post anything about it because, oh man, look who's at my party. There's no party. I'm out being good to someone and doing something because it's my birthday. So that's what I do, man. I like that.
You're a special guy, man.
You've had the hardest life I think I've ever met.
Ever heard, yeah.
I don't think I've ever met anyone with a harder life than you, ever.
All I did is what you need to do is find your own beauty. I am absolutely, and I mean this, unwavering and accepting. I've learned how to become a beautiful man from my suffering. Tears didn't make me this. The feelings behind the tears were real. And I get that. It's your expression, that the zenith that you can climb in your expression of your feelings is going to be your growth development. I've cried every possible tear. I've shared every human emotion, both privately and aloud. And that's how I grew. That's it. The only thing's going to make you beautiful is pain. I know it sounds crazy, but I cherish love so much because people would spit in my food or beat me or try and make me feel dirty and break my will and call me horrible names. And my answer to that was, that's not fair. I'm a nice person and you're not going to do that to me, and I'm not going to let that happen. I'm going to love myself. I'm going to see myself as beautiful. And I don't care about that word. I'm not ashamed of it. I get that about myself. There's a beauty in every part of nature. Why not accept your own?
That's the first step, right? Acceptance, I always say. Off the back of like everything that you've experienced, who would you say like you've come across or been in the rooms of that is kind of stuck by you that we may know, apart from David, of course?
Oh man, there's so many people that are just intrinsic to my life. David Sinkton brought the world to me in a cell-like feature so that I could bring myself before the world, a life-lingering gift. I like the fact that I have, and I'll always hold dear, an affinity for having the experience of being father figure to someone else. My friend Alex Rattoli right now calls me his father. He lost his dad 25 years ago. I met him in this unique experience. I have to tell you this. We were in Oregon camping together. Alex has been homeless his entire cancer journey. He had his dog with him named Bishop, and we stood before the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful night. The surface was so pristine smooth. We had an event happen to us. The Milky Way suddenly lit up the surface. The whole ocean had this ribbon of undulating lights from the Milky Way. We were stunned. We'd never seen anything like this before in our lives. He turned to me and related a story that he went to Scotland and he felt alive when he found out that he was genetically Scottish. And he turned to me and he said, I just want to feel alive like that again. I shook his hand and I said, Alex, I'm going to tell the world your story and we're going to go to Scotland together. I don't know how, but I'm going to fulfill your dream of feeling alive again. And I'm going to be there to witness it. That was 3 years ago. And now I got a film crew on its way to Washington State to film Alex. Then he's going to come here. And I'm going to get on a train with him, and we're going to ride up to Scotland so I can fulfill the promise to my friend. That's what keeps me going.
Wow.
When's this happening with Alex?
We're trying to raise the funding now to get the second leg of the journey. Mikey Perry is in Australia. This is crazy. I'm in Reading. I'm at the De Vere Wokefield Estate Hotel, and I meet a man from Australia who's a former UK resident. And I drove down here in a car, and I had a bag of jelly beans under the passenger seat that I had been desperately trying to reach with my clumsy fingers. My hands are all broken. And I couldn't get them out. And I get finally the bag out because I'm so hungry. And I take them into the hotel. I open them up on the bar and I said, anybody want a Jelly Belly? Mike Perry Sr. starts telling me the story of how he had a woman represent him who worked for that company and how he used to always have to bring him home for his children. And then his son walks over, Mikey. And Mikey, when you see this, you'll remember. We start talking about jelly beans, and I tell you the story about my friend Alex. And the next thing I know, you go back to Australia and you make one of the most badass movie trailers for a documentary. And I just sent it to Ozan tonight. So it's really cool that without even meeting Alex, you made one of the best documentary film trailers of all time. That work inspired me now to hold on until December. So Mikey and them are going to go to Washington State and film. And then I'm going to hold on here until the third week or fourth week of December and meet you guys here. And we'll finish the film. And then we're going to take it forward and we're going to help everyone. Because the name of the documentary is, Why Don't You Just Kill Yourself? And why is it such a controversial name? Someone had the cheek to ask my friend, who explained to them after having a 22-inch piece of bone operated on and removed from his body and have all kind of horrible things suffering him by being homeless with cancer for 10 years, why didn't he just kill himself? And when I heard that, I told my friend Alex, good, they just gave us the name of your movie. And he said, what? I said, yeah, Alex. That's the name of the movie because we're going to give the world the most beautiful, eloquent answer for why you don't kill yourself. And you're going to represent that answer. And he looked at me, he said, Nick, I love you, man. So that's the name of the documentary, and that's why I'm here. And that's why I'm going to go and take a break for a couple of months until they come over. And then I'm going to finish my promise to my friend Alex. After that, we'll see.
Wow, man.
Wow.
Listen, man, first of all, Where have you travelled from today? Lincolnshire.
Yeah, it's been a mission. I got up at 5 this morning. I've been going ever since.
Where are you going?
I do apologize. I have something to say. Anthony Samandani is a good friend of mine, and for the last 6 years, you watched me take this ride, young man. I could never do an interview where someone asked me about the most important people. But thank you for my friendship with Muhammad Ali's daughter, May, and thank you for all the times you shared Erica and the children with me. If it wasn't for you, sir, I honestly wouldn't have made it to this point. And I just was struck by that one thing. I do apologize for not mentioning your name, Anthony.
Nice,
I'm
man.
sorry about that.
That's cool. No, the floor is yours, man. What's the plan after the pod? Where are you going to go now? Are you going to...
I'm going to, so I'm hours and hours away from anywhere. I'm going to camp out in my camper tonight. And I'm supposed to do a podcast tomorrow with a outfit from Holland. And if I can pull that off, then I'm going to start driving north to Liverpool. And I'm trying to get all the resources together to go up there and throw my hat in the ring with Shelley and Keats and all of the greatest writers of the world from Ireland. And I want to release new works. I've been talking to David about a new stage play. I've written a new book. I have a new TV series that I wrote that I think is going to be like the next Law and Order. And so I have to go with the self-belief approach. I can't step out here and then all of a sudden pull back now. So it's an easy question for me to answer. I'm going to keep trying to use my talent and ability to get my life in order. I paid the price for COVID, unlike anybody else. I've come back, and I'm just on the cusp of having someone care about me, a new life, and new opportunities for work.
Nice, man. Well,
I've got to ask you, Nick, one sort of last little sort of closing question for you, dude. When you get to that day when you move on to the next life, what is it you want to be able to look back on your life and say, like, what is it you want your legacy to be?
That's funny. You stole that word from me. I want to leave a legacy. All right. So what is a legacy? The legacy is in the memories of the people that will be last alive that knew you. So I want a legacy of every young person that I make an effort with to carry forward. Like, I've already achieved immortality. I'm a published author. I wrote Monsters and Madmen. I wrote Fear of 13. I wrote The Kindness Approach about neuroplasticity healing. I can't ever possibly die. I'm a published author. I love that. I've given myself immortality in a way that maybe 500 years from now, someone will read a copy of my book and they're sitting in a prison cell and they get their shit together. I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah, what an impact.
nice, man.
What do you want to leave, man? Like, what do you want? I can tell you what I want to leave you with. You're the person that I got out of prison hoping for. You're the person that I was banking on being like, and you're the person that I need. I need good people like these young men to open up their hearts to me and give me a chance, because I wasn't always good. And I'm forever embarrassed about that. And I apologize for anybody that wants to take an aim at me. Go ahead. I deserve it. I don't mind. But I promise you, for the ones that really got this message, I love you. Man, I love you for coming home and taking care of the kids. And I love you for being the best mate to your mate. I know he won't stop drinking. I know he's driving, but you're a great friend and I love you. Like, I get that about men and women too. Thank you for being the good ones, because that's who I came out here to meet. Yeah?
Wow.
Thank you, man.
What a closing message,
appreciate
man.
it, man.
Appreciate you making the journey. Appreciate you coming on the
100%.
pod. And it was honestly, man, a pleasure meeting you.
I was
One of the
captivated.
most incredible experiences ever.
I know if I can make it to January, I'll have lived 20 years free. I'm really looking forward to that. I only have 3 more years to go before I can be a free person, as long as I just spent the last 23 years on death row. So my hope is that I can kill and do all these wonderful things that I've spoken about. But even if I don't, I promise you, I'm not going to be a bitter pill and fuck this up and let you down. Thank you
Love
for
that.
watching. Thank you for sharing. And I'm really grateful that I reached out to Ozan and shared this with you guys. It means a lot to me. Thank you.
And to us.
Yeah, man, we're grateful.
And listen, guys, if you've made it this far into the pod, that's probably one of the deepest pods we've ever had. One of the great storytelling we've ever had. And like I said, once again, I thank you very much for coming on, bro.
And listen, guys, anyone watching this that this is like this properly resonated with, reach out to Nikki.
Leave a comment in the comment section below.
Reach out to any of us. You know, everyone knows where to hit us up on Instagram, Nikki on Instagram, us boys. Yeah, man.
Like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next.
Peace.
Peace.
Peace.